Right, so the first step into the server-side attacks is information gathering. Information gathering is very important because it will show us the operating system of the target, the installed programs or the running services on the target, the ports associated with the services. Now from these installed services we can try and get into the system. We can do this by trying the default passwords, and we've seen this before in the network penetration testing part. If the person still uses the default password, which was at point. So we can do this with any other service. And we'll see another example here today. Another thing that we can do is there's a lot of people install services and misconfigure them. So we'll have another example of this. A lot of these services are designed to give access to that computer, but they obviously need to have some security implementations. People often misconfigure these services, so we can take advantage of these misconfigurations and gain access to these computers. Another problem with these services, some of them might even have backdoors, and we'll see an example of that. And a lot of them would have vulnerabilities, such as remote buffer overflows or code execution vulnerabilities that allow us to again gain full access to that computer. Now, the simplest way on doing this is something that we've seen before, which is using ZenMap. So we use ZenMap using the IP, we get a list of all of these services, and then Google maybe each one of them and see if they contain any vulnerabilities. Now we've seen how we use ZenMap before, but I just want to convey the idea of anything is a computer, and we've seen before how the Metasploitable device, this device is actually a website, it has a web server running, so websites are nothing different than this. If you want to get an IP of a website, all you have to do is just do a ping. So for example, if we're targeting Facebook, so all we have to do is do ping facebook.com, and we'll get their IP right here. So we have Facebook's IP and we'll be able to run ZenMap against it and get a list of all the running services on Facebook. Now, obviously, I'm not going to do that because I'm not allowed to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run ZenMap against this Metasploitable device, which basically is a computer device. And that's what we're interested into testing. So again. So you can go about penetration anything the same way. So I'm going to run ZenMap just with this the same way that we did before. So I'm going and type ZenMap in the terminal. And here is ZenMap and I'm gonna put the IP of my target of the Metasploitable device, which was 192.168.24.6133. So remember in the network penetration testing part we used to put the base IP and put it over 24 to cover all the IPs around us in the network. In this case you might be testing a remote IP. So for example in the Facebook case all you have to do is just put the Facebook IP in there and test it. Now that's granted that you have permission to do that. Now I don't have permission. So I'm not going to do that. What I have permission to do is test my own device, which is installed on the same network as me. So that's why I'm putting that IP. So I'm going to hit on scan. And this will give me a list of all the installed applications. Okay, so the scan is finished now. And we have a lot of open ports, a lot of services. What I advise you to do in this case now, if you want to do a simple test, is you literally go on ports, port by port, read what it is, and Google the name of the program. So for example, we have port 21 here, that's an FTP port. FTP is a service that it's installed to allow people to upload or download files from the remote server. So we can see usually FTP services use a username and password, but you can see that this service has been misconfigured and it allows anonymous FTP login. So, unlike the SSH that we used before in the network penetration testing, we use the default password. With this, you'll be able to log in without a password. So all you have to do is download an FTP client, such as FileZilla, and you'll be able to connect using this IP address on port 21. We're gonna exploit that today and I chose this very simple exploit because I want to introduce you to a framework called Metasploit. We're going to be using that framework a lot. So I wanted something simple to start with, and then we're going to go deeper into that framework. Now, first, let me show you how we find that exploit. So again, using the same method that we've always been using, I have my map scan. And as I said, we're going to go on each board and Google them looking for exploits. So I'm going to Google the service name here. And I'm going to go to my browser, go to Google. And I'm going to type in exploit. So the service name and followed by exploit. And as you can see, the first result comes in from a website called Rapid7. Now Rapid7 is a company that makes me to exploit framework. So that's why I chose this particular exploit to show you today. So let me go back and let's talk about Metasploit for a second. So we're going to exploit this service or this problem using Metas. And as you can see here, Rapid7 is telling us that this version of FTP has a backdoor command execution. So it allows us, we can basically execute commands on the target computer if it has this program installed. And from map, we know that this program is installed, which means that we can execute commands on the target machine. So I'm coming back here and I'm going to go to the next slide, which talks about Metasploit. Now Metasploit, as I said, is made by Rapid7. It is a huge framework that contains a large number of exploits. So it allows you to exploit vulnerabilities or create your own exploits. If you are an expert and you know how to discover and make exploits, then Metasploit will help you do that. Now for today, we're doing a very simple use of an existing vulnerability. So the commands on Metasploit are very easy. They might seem a bit complicated now, but once you get used to it, it is very easy to use. And a lot of them are generic commands. So here I'm showing you the basic generic commands, and then there are other commands that you get used to them in time. So the first command is msf console, and this basically just launches Metasploit program. You can always type in help at any stage and you'll get help of the commands and their description on how you can use them. You can use the show command to show something. So you can show the available exploits, you can show the available auxiliaries, the available payloads, and we'll talk about what each of these mean in the future. You can use the use command to use something that you've shown. So for example, you showed exploits and you picked a certain exploit that you want to use, then you use the use command and then you type in the exploit name to run it. Then you can use the set option or the set command to set specific options for the exploit. For example, if you wanted to set the IP address of your target, so you set the IP and then you put the value of the IP that you want to set it to. And then at the end, once you finish configuring your exploit, you can type in exploit to execute that exploit. Now, I know this might look a bit vague, but once I use it is going to become very clear to you. And we're going to be using these programs a lot at these commands a lot. So they're going to become very easy and simple to use. So we're coming back here. So we went on map, we Googled the name of the service. And the first thing that came up is that this service has a backdoor command execution because this is our Rapid7. The vulnerability is exploitable using Metasploit. And the module name that we're going to be using is this. So it made our life much easier with this. So I'm going to copy the name. This is the name that I want to use to exploit this vulnerability. So I'm going to go to my console and I'm going to launch Metasploit using the command msf console. And we're going to do a use and then put the name of the exploit that we just copied from Google or from Rapid7. So we're going to use that to exploit. And as you can see now, the name here changed to exploit and then the name of exploit that we're using. Then we're going to use the show command to show the options that we need to set. So as I said, show is a generic command that you can use in a number of cases. So in this case, we're going to show options to see all the options that we can change for this particular exploit. And as you can see now, the second option is the port that the service is running on, and it's already set to port 21. And this is correct. If we go back to map, you'll see that our target FTP client or server is running on port 21. So this is good. We don't need to change any of that. What we need to change is the roast. So the roast is the target IP address, as you can see here. And to change the value of this, as I explained before, we're going to use the set option or the set command. So our command is going to be set, and we're going to set the roast, and that's the IP address of my target Metasploited bot machine. So we use set, and after set you put the option name. So for example, if you wanted to change the port, use set or port. We are changing the host, so we set roast to 192168246133. And then hit enter, and as you can see now the roast is set to this. Now what I want to do is show the options again just to make sure that everything is configured correctly. And as you can see now the roast has been changed to 192168246133. So everything is ready now, and to execute the exploit, we just type in exploit. And as you can see now the exploit was run successfully. And now I have access to the target computer. If I do an ID, you'll see that my ID is root. Now basically I'm running Linux commands here. So if you do a uname a, you'll see that this is my Metasploitable machine. And if I do ls, then it'll list the files for me. If I do pwd, it'll show me where I am. And I can use Linux commands to do anything I want on the target machine. Now this was a very simple use of Metasploit. In the future we might be gonna be using it for more advanced stuff.